What do you think would happen if a real estate brokerage didn't have great accounting and compliance policies?
Moving forward with the Dekker team. Moving forward together with the Dekker team.
We've created for you free access to over 367 Inside Track episodes on our YouTube DekkerTeam channel that provide insight on real estate, insider tips, making your house a home and growing wealth, and also having a simply whole life. You get exactly what you need, when you need it, and where you need it, whether you're at the office or on the go.
So the question, brokerage, accounting, what does it matter? Well, RECO, which is our governing body, the Ontario Real Estate Association of
Real Estate Council of Ontario.
Right, that's the one. That's the one, Real Estate Council of Ontario. I knew that. There's so many associations we have to adhere to, and yet that one governs all the accounting practices, as well as there's a whole financial government component as well, right? And so if they don't like how a brokerage is handling public funds, they can actually shut down the brokerage.
Yes, and they have.
And they do.
Yes.
They do. Not ours.
And not just shut down like, you're closed for a week.
No, gone.
Gone, out of business, close the doors. Right. You know, pay for the lease till the end, pay for your copier till the end. All your agents have to go work for somebody else. Huge disruption because they believe that protecting you, the public, is their utmost important thing. And it is.
Well, it is, because if you haven't got that, you're messed.
Right.
And so on this episode, we're going to talk about compliance and how do we handle compliance, not just as it relates to your funds, as it relates to the documents and the paperwork and all the accounting associated with every agreement.
Yeah. And so at Solid Rock, we have several team members that make sure that all of this happens. For instance, your trust money. Now, you might say, well, it's a trust money. Trust money is when you put an offer on a property, that check you write for the deposit needs to go into a trust account because it doesn't belong to the real estate company.
And it doesn't belong to the seller yet.
Right.
And it doesn't really any longer belong to the buyer.
Right. So
it's actually an indication of good faith, as well as it's part of what holds the it's money that is transferred as a deposit. And now we're seeing larger and larger deposits.
Yes.
Because the value of properties has gone up. So now it's not just $1,000. Often it can be $20,000 or $40,000 that's sitting in a trust account.
Right. It's a significant amount of money. And also, it's not just the values that have gone up. Now you're competing with other buyers, and a larger deposit says, I'm more financially secure to the seller. And so we're getting larger and larger deposits.
We are, and they're having to be held in a trust account. So that can feel really uncomfortable. If you're the buyer, you're going, that's a lot of money out of my bank account. And maybe even I had to take it out of a short-term thing. And maybe I'm even paying interest on it because my money's tied up in my house. So like, it's a big deal.
Right.
You don't want to risk losing it. So the compliance and the quality control around that is vital.
Right. And there's a couple of things that are important to know. First of all, because we are members and we're licensed, the deposits are insured.
Right.
So if anything should go wrong, whether it be theft or whatever it is, fraud, your deposit money in a real estate transaction, if you're using a realtor on both sides, or at least on the listing side,
where the deposit money is being
the deposit,
held. Yeah.
It's protected and insured that you'll get it. Now, the other thing that's important to know is with a trust account, there's only 3 ways I can have money removed out of the trust account.
Or anybody can have money removed.
And I can't actually do it. Our broker of record is the only one that has signing authority on that, and they can only remove it with 3 different aspects. One is the property's closed, we get a direction from the lawyer that it has closed.
Right. And then the money gets distributed as in per the agreement of purchase and sale.
Right. Secondly is that by mutual consent, both the buyer and the seller have signed off that it goes a certain direction.
Right.
Whether it goes back to the seller or it goes to the buyer or it's split or whatever. But by
There's
mutual
agreement.
consent, there's
Yeah.
agreement. And the third way is by court order.
That's
So
it.
If the buyer and the seller don't close and they don't agree, the money sits there. And technically it sits there forever. Except Real Estate Council of Ontario has a rule that if it's stale, if it's been in there over a year and we can't get any kind of resolution or there's no process in place, like there isn't a court date, there isn't something happening, we have to send it to them. So they hold the money.
Yeah. Still in trust, but it's not, people will often say to me, well, if things don't go south, then, or if they do go south, I can get the money or they get the money or this happens to the money. It's like, only if it's provided for within the agreement. Trust money is held sacred.
Yeah. And then there's the compliance side of things, which is, are all the documents done? Are the documents done correctly?
Right.
Did we
Getting them done and doing them correctly are two different things.
Did we dot our I's, cross our T's? Are we following financial tracking rules for the RCMP? Recently I had someone, I said, can you give me a copy of your driver's license and can I ask you some questions about where you work and that sort of thing? And they said, well, what's this for? And I explained it's for the Anti-Money Laundering and Anti-Terrorism Act so that the RCMP can track financial things. And the same thing happens at your bank. If you're doing over a $10,000 transaction, they're going to start asking
They're going to have
questions.
to fill in a FinTrack.
Fill out
The
a
lawyers
form.
have to do a FinTrack, and we have to do a FinTrack. So
Yeah, it's a lot of tracking for the same transaction.
it is. But I think what they're thinking is if it's done in triplicate or quadruple sometimes, it's going to get done.
Right. And so Gina...
And if there's inconsistencies, that's a red flag.
That's when there's a problem, yeah. And Gina's our broker of record and our compliance officer for FinTrack. So she makes sure that our paperwork is top notch. And I must say, I've been in the business over 25 years. You've been in over 30. And I think Gina does the best job that I have ever seen
Any compliance officer.
do.
And you would know because you're the CFO of Solid Rock Realty. And for over a decade, you were the compliance guy.
Yeah, and I was not as good as she is.
And you
I'll tell
were
you
good.
that. I was good, but I was not as good as she is.
She catches everything. And so that is a difference with Solid Rock. That we have somebody that is phenomenal at making sure that every single, and it's not even a dot on an I that she catches. She'll catch a quarter of a dot on an I. I haven't told her that yet, and I'm going to. Because sometimes I'm thinking, oh, seriously, this is not a compliance issue. But because it could be perceived as a compliance issue, or it could lead to something, she will catch it and she will have us modify and correct and make sure it is done with precision like nothing I've ever seen before.
Right. Yeah, and so at Solid Rock, we've got a saying. And it's really, our saying is, if you don't have time to do it right, when in the world will you have time to do it over? So thanks for growing alongside of the Dekker team. As we're passionate about helping families thrive in their life, both at home and in business.
Moving forward with the Dekker team. Moving forward together.